I see our panelists turning on their cameras. Thank you. Join me. So welcome. I'm Florence McGregor, NYSE's Interim Executive Director, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to today's presentation, which is the second installment of our pre-conference webinar series, which is all leading up to Building Energy NYC, coming up on September 15th. If you haven't yet registered, you can do so on our website. There are two more presentations in this pre-conference series. I hope you'll join us for those. Today's event is sponsored by NYSERDA, the presenting sponsor for the conference, and we're delighted to be here to learn about the funding available for customized building and operations maintenance training. So that's all from me for now. Just again, welcome from NYSE, and I'm going to turn over the floor to Devetta Thatcher, the Senior Project Manager for Workforce Development and Training at NYSERDA.
Wonderful. Thank you all for being here today. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to do this presentation, and I'm also excited to be able to attend a presentation by one of our speakers on the day of the NYSE conference. So I manage the Building Operations and Maintenance program at NYSERDA. It is called PON, Program Opportunity Notice 3715. And when you get a copy of these slides, that is indeed a hot link down in the lower left corner. Can I have the next slide, please? I am going to take a wild guess and assume that pretty much everyone on this call has heard of NYSERDA. We have a bold mission. In fact, it's gotten more and more bold as our governors. I was trying to decide one, or should I mention one or both, but really both governors have made huge pronouncements for energy savings and carbon reduction over the next number of years. The workforce program within NYSERDA has $120 million dedicated to clean energy workforce development and training. And the Building Operations and Maintenance is one of those many programs. We've probably already invested over 10 million. And I'm here to tell you that we have an additional 10 million available for new projects. We train people from many different audiences, new workers, we train the trainers. We're putting a lot of emphasis on the importance of training priority populations and members of disadvantaged communities. The program I'm speaking of today primarily trains existing workers. And we do that in partnership with buildings that manage, buildings in which there are workforce folks doing building operations and maintenance. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. My PON that we're talking about today is the top on the list, PON 3715. I want to point out that we have three others. The PON 3981, I'm going to point out briefly here because it is a sister solicitation to 3715. The primary difference being that if you're applying for 3715, not only have you identified a group of people who have skills gaps that the training will fill, but that group of people also are associated with a specific grouping of buildings. So 3715 must have a building. If you're just looking to train a population, then 3981 is a solicitation you would look at. And of course, we have the on-the-job training program and our internship program. Can I have the next slide? Okay, before I go through the what, who, how, when, I just want to let you know that you can ask questions at any time using the chat function. And that slides from this webinar will be sent to you via email after the webinar is over. So what are the benefits of O&M training? That's what we're here to discuss. I'm also going to tell you a little bit about the O&M program, including who can apply, how much funding is available, and I'm going to tell you the upcoming due dates. Most important, though, we are going to spend half of this time hearing from 2 current contractors, because the successes that they have achieved by participating in this program are far more interesting to hear about than the details of how do you apply. We'll follow that up with questions. So again, I encourage you to put questions in the chat as we go along. Next slide, please. I hardly have to even talk about this one. We, in our community, in the energy community, in the buildings community, we are so sensitive to the importance of reducing our energy use and thereby reducing the carbon emissions. So not only are we saving money when we optimize our building operations, but we're also really contributing to the people who work in O&M by improving their skill set. We're going to have an incredible turnover within the next 10 years with senior people leaving our industry. And we don't have enough people coming up through the pipeline right now. So this type of training is something that can also set a building apart, because they may become known for taking really good care of their people. There's a few ways that this program works beyond just the classroom training. We also hope to impact your corporate culture, so the culture in your organization, and shift that towards a sustainability culture. I'll talk more about that later. Next slide, please. All right, now the nuts and bolts. To be eligible, you have to pay into the SBC or the CEF. As I said, you must come in with the proposal for specific buildings. And this particular website that I've got the screenshot from, that shows the locations of the O&M training projects that have been funded to date. So we have done training of operators who work in almost 3,000 buildings. The minimum total annual energy spend for your business must be 1 million. So you need to be paying very large energy bills to have this program participation. And again, at the bottom left there, I give you the link to the other pond where you don't have a building, you just have people who are identified for training. Next slide, please. Funding and cost share. I love the show me the money. We have $10 million. We are eager to spend that. In fact, we just revised our solicitation and we reduced the required cost share. So now the cost share is only 10% if 75% or more of your buildings are within a disadvantaged community. For everyone else, that number is 30%. So we put in 70%, and the building typically is the one that will put in the 10%. The really important thing here is I'm not asking for 10% cash on the line. The hours that the O&M staff spent in the trainings counts towards your cost share. Any equipment that you are going to use just for the training can count towards your cost share. So it's kind of easy to come up with either that 30 or that 10. We also have changed it to allow union-led projects and pre-apprenticeship programs to also be able to take advantage of that 10% cost share. There's a $400,000 per proposal limit, and we added another due date. We just had a round due a couple weeks ago, but because we have made these significant changes to the pond, we've added another due date. There is a due date September 22nd, and then one in November, and 4 more coming up next year. Next slide, please. Targeted occupations cost, it's across the board, completely across the board. Our goal here is to optimize the performance of a building. with regards to any of the energy consumed by space conditioning, by air handling, by pumps. If you are an industrial facility, this is not about industrial process improvements, but it's about the work that the operating and stationary engineers do to keep your boiler plant going. So many, many different occupations. Next slide, please. And eligible activities also cut across the board. The most important thing is that you have identified a skills gap. The building personnel does an assessment of what does my staff need to know that they don't really have proper training on. Once you identify that skills gap and determine that there's no off-the-shelf kind of commercially available trainings, you can come to NYSERDA with a proposal for training to fill that skills gap. And that training can either be based upon the equipment or upon the service, the O&M maintenance of that equipment. We have also paid for on-site training labs. We've done career pathway training, apprenticeships, coaching, mentorship. Train the trainer is also a very, very important facet of many of our projects because it builds sustainability and replicability into our program. At some point, NYSERDA's money is going to be spent. And what we want to be sure is that whatever training you develop for your staff right now, you'll be able to, one, bring that training to other facilities within your portfolio. And two, be able to train people who come in new and also to retrain your folks who have gone through the training once. So sustainability and replicability are key. Next slide, please. Here's a list of our current contractors. I have bolded 32BJ and City College of New York because those are our two speakers today. If you would like to see a full list, I urge you to go to the map, which I showed a few slides ago. And it will break down. You can cut the pie and do subsets for the various buildings, for the various property types. So I encourage you to look at that map. And this is my last slide because we're getting to the good stuff now. And that good stuff is going to start with, next slide, please. Michaela Boren. And she is here today. She is the manager of green programs at 32BJ Thomas Shortman Training Fund, where she works with property managers and building operators to create courses that give the 32BJ members the tools and the training they need to meet today's changing needs. In addition to training adults herself to enter the green industry, she manages energy training courses for New York City's DCAS, Department of Citywide Services, and other properties. So I am now turning it over to Michaela. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So next slide, please, Celeste. All right. So welcome. Our organization is the 32BJ Training Fund, and who we are. Next page, please. We are a joint labor management partnership. So if you guys remember, back in April, there was news about contract negotiations with door persons and handy persons. Door persons, handy persons, supers, cleaners, porters, security guards, they're all part of a union called 32BJ. And 32BJ union works with RAB, or the Realty Advisory Board, which is an organization of employers and management companies. So what happens is that 32BJ and RAB work together to finalize a contract that includes different benefits for building operators, and that includes health benefits, dental benefits, and training benefits. So we are a separate entity that offers training to 32BJ members, and it's all free because employers contribute. They make contributions based on the contract. So we offer over 250 classes in more than 60 locations from the Boston area all the way down to Florida. And we also work with employers to create customized training and do classes on site during company time. All right, so next slide, please. So we all know that building operators are essential workers who keep our buildings safe, healthy, and running, hence the importance of operations and maintenance. The Department of Energy throughout the years have made studies on the value of O&M and how good O&M, predictive maintenance, preventive maintenance can really make a big difference. And so throughout the years, with this in mind and knowing that the role of building operators have evolved, they now have the vital role of turning existing buildings into green buildings, right? So next slide, please. All right, so building operators are now responsible for measuring and managing energy use. They're monitoring the use and performance of new technologies, making sure everything's running at maximum efficiency, making sure the building fulfills the different green laws, like with energy grade, local law 97, energy conservation, and hence the importance of green training, because they have to be on top of all of this. They need to adjust, they need to make retrofits. If they're in historical buildings, you know, that's another challenge in itself. And so at the training fund, we offer more than 20 green building courses. And thanks to NYSERDA, we are able to offer green coaching. So about our program, next slide, please. All right, we started in 2017, so we're one of the very loyal people to NYSERDA in terms of applying for this grant. We first received it at that time, and the name of our program was Green Supers On-Site Training and Coaching. The training included visiting the building and doing a pre-training assessment of all the systems. So we came in, we looked at everything, and then we met with management to create a customized curriculum. So what are you concerned about? What do you see in the team? What would you like to include? And then during the training, and then we would do the training on site, which allowed us to do a scavenger hunt, which was really fun. The scavenger hunt allows all staff to understand why the building was built the way it was, how it works, and how to improve it. So that was an essential part of the training. And then we would come back months later to do green coaching. So the instructor would actually come in, ask how, what the new plan is, what is everybody doing differently, what they need help in, what skills did they learn, and realize these savings. And then after that, we would do a post-training assessment. Okay, next slide, please. Right. So at the end of this round, we were able to train a total of 66 32BJ operators in 55 buildings. We worked with 5 employers, which we gave final reports to, and we also came out with one case study. This case study was definitely a team effort by the employer, by the 32BJ team, and by the NYSERDA team. The employer and the building staff were very happy and thankful to be acknowledged, especially for their efforts. If you already have the grant or plan to apply, please consider taking note of the big and small wins and taking photos and quotes and then share that with DaVeta, because DaVeta and the NYSERDA team are very sincere and work hard in creating this different case studies, which you guys can download from the website. And then we also receive very positive feedback from the participants. So the post-training survey also was very helpful. It showed that they were inspired to take more training and to go green, and through understanding their building more, it generated more connection and more ownership. Okay. So next slide, please. All right, so we did have a number of challenges, and for sure, one of the challenges that we had was scheduling difficulties. So what was the best time for the staff to take training together? If there was an ongoing building project or building emergency, if coverage was needed just in case a tenant needed assistance. So usually the staff was divided in half. So we would run 2 cohorts. The other challenge that we had was that we expected around 5 to 10 staff per building, and it came out to an average of 3 to 5 staff per building at most. Also, current events happened, and COVID definitely paused our activities. Buildings were quite strict about who was coming in and out of the building, and the buildings also just wanted to make sure there was staff coverage because people were getting sick. Commuting was a challenge. And so that was, something that we really had to take into consideration. Also, energy grade came into effect, and it kind of shifted the focus of the building industry towards improving their energy grade. And then other than that, we had challenges getting the data and standardizing it. So in terms of the building operators, not everybody had access to it. And if we did receive data, it came from different sources, and we had to coordinate with a lot of people to get it. And if there was access, it was limited. So just trying to standardize all of that was, a lot of work as well. Next slide, please. All right. So in 2022, just this year, we did a contract mod, and we changed the name of the program to How to Improve Your Energy Grade to better promote it. We refocused the program towards building performance or energy grade, and how it is impacted by operations and maintenance. So we repackaged the program in the sense that there was a more feasible goal attached, but everything was the same. So we're still offering on-site customized training, but we opened up another avenue of allowing our members to take the training on their own time. So they're attached to a building, but instead of us going to their building for certain restrictions, they come to us. The training is still customized in a way that it's still held at the Union building, but we're really leveraging the pre-training survey and researching the data, their building data ahead of time. We also bought new equipment that participants can take back to their building. It's part of the homework, and that's also part of the customization of the class, since we can't go there. And that way they can also immediately see something that can be improved and addressed. For data, we are leveraging data from the different government websites and showing it to the operators, at the very beginning. So they can already review, and we can review that data with them. And also we added a second page to the survey with more questions that would help us customize the training, double check data, and initiate more action and pre-plan the coaching. So what actions do they want to do after they complete it, and what type of information or help would they like when the instructor comes to their building for coaching. Okay, and you can see in the photos, these are, the in-classroom training that we had, and then we bought the equipment and how they were testing it out. Right, and for the last page. Next slide. All right. So with that, I hope to see you all at the Building Energy NYC conference on September 15. Please join our session. It's called Sealing the Operations and Maintenance Gap, Empowering Building Operators. The whole session is about focusing on participants who are not building operators, how you can support training and operations and maintenance. So you will hear from a building operator, from a 32 BJ operator, from a building board member, and with a special guest speaker, Davera, who will also give updates on the grant. And, it's really for attendees to learn opportunities of how you can support operations and maintenance and operating trainer, even if you're not a building operator. So please feel free to contact me if you did like more information, or if you're in a 32 BJ building or work with 32 BJ members and would like to do some training. And with that, back to Davera to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, Michaela. That was wonderful. Can we go to the next slide? Before I introduce Raymond, let me answer a couple questions that I've seen popping up in the chat. One of them pertains to what buildings can apply. And occasionally we do get applications from a hospital. So Memorial Sloan Kettering, as a hospital, which had a training group within it, put forward a proposal to train their staff. What we've also seen a lot of, especially in the multifamily area, is that an engineering services company that perhaps is already working with a property management company will submit a proposal on behalf of the property management company. And in those instances, there could be 100 different buildings within that training program. The most important thing is that these skills gaps that have been identified are consistent across all of those buildings. So if it's a heating system training kind of program, then all of those buildings need heating system. And of course, there is an adjustment to the curricula for the different equipment that's in there, but they have a common training need, and there's 100 buildings. We've also seen proposals which include different organizations. So 3 different property management companies that are rather small and each have 10 buildings. If they have common training needs, they can come together to submit a proposal. So you don't have to have one big old building with $1 million energy spend. It is the combination of all of the buildings that are in the proposal that need to have the $1 million energy spend. And I'll answer or clarify any of this when we're into the Q&A. But right now, I'd like to introduce you to Raymond MacLeish. He is a program manager at the Office of Continuing and Professional Studies at the City College of New York. He has over 10 years of experience and has been responsible for the creation and oversight of various continuing ed certification programs, in addition to coordinating the marketing and promotional efforts within his department. He's also responsible for oversight and coordination of funded initiatives, like this one with NYSERDA, and also initiatives with various CBOs, community-based organizations. So Raymond, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Devetta.
Next slide.
Welcome, everybody. And I guess we'll get to it. So next slide, please. So as was previously stated, my name is Raymond MacLeish. I'm with the Office of Continuing and Professional Studies at the City College of New York, the flagship institution at the City University of New York, located in Upper Manhattan, the Harlem area. We are a department that is open to the general public, which means you do not have to be a matriculated student to participate in our programs. The majority of our programs are certification based, which means we provide job training for anyone who's interested in either advancing in their particular trade or starting maybe a new career. We offer that service, so you get to come in with us, get certified for a new trade or new career, and then move on in your career goals. And we were very excited to work with NYSERDA to establish a training program that would pretty much serve a sort of historically underrepresented demographic within the sort of energy community. So we were very happy with being able to sort of launch this program, this initiative via the City College of New York through our department. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about what the program was, what it entailed, who we worked with, challenges, and outcomes. Next slide, please. So again, the Office of Continuing and Professional Studies partnered primarily with West Harlem Group Assistance Incorporated, which is a major affordable housing nonprofit organization, or CBO, in Harlem. And the goal was to train that organization's entire workforce, whether it's supporting and or interacting with the actual real estate portfolio. So we were basically offering this program to their workforce to try to sort of begin as a pilot and sort of start with getting them trained in the energy audit certification, which I'll go into a little bit later. Next slide, please. So basically, we developed an optimizing energy efficiency training program for West Harlem. And that focused on energy audits education, which is appropriate for building operators and mechanical engineers. It also focused on operations and maintenance support staff, as well as building partners, owners, landlords, and tenants. I know that was a bit of a mouthful, but we basically wanted to have as wide a scope for potential students as possible to offer this program. This custom course delivered energy efficient best practices, diagnostic, technical, and performance optimization training, most relevant to the portfolios that West Harlem delineated to us and let us know that they were interested in getting training for. It also provided the West Harlem employees and the larger community access to critical upskilling developmental opportunities, which are in very high demand. And again, this speaks to the underrepresentation that we were looking to address, or the needs of the underrepresented that we were looking to address across various NYC green economy market sectors. So again, there was sort of that intent to sort of meet the needs in this very high demand career path. Next slide, please. The audience, again, for the West Harlem Group was 250 of their staff, workers, affiliates, and tenants. This included building operators and mechanical engineers, building operations and maintenance support staff, building partners, owners and landlords, and the West Harlem building tenants. There were in total 59 buildings incorporated by the West Harlem Group that were included in the project, and a total a number of 842,352 square feet. Next slide, please. So upon completion of the course, what we were trying to have the participants of the course walk out with was being able to demonstrate an understanding of essential imperatives for implementing energy efficiency within the New York City building environment at all levels, identifying the 4 different types of energy audits, level 0 through 3, describing their purpose, process, and related cost. We also wanted them to be able to describe and outline key energy audit components, as well as various energy audit processes, including data collection, diagnostic testing, data evaluation and reporting, again, from level 0, level 1, and level 2 audit proposals. We also wanted them to identify necessary equipment, be able to conduct visual inspections, interviews, and diagnostic testing. And this is again required for level 1 and 2 West Harlem on-site energy audit exercises. Also wanted them to be able to build a scope of work requirement for energy efficient improvements, as well as making immediate and long-term conservation recommendations with prioritization. Again, completing levels 0 and level 1 energy audits, as well as being a part of the O&M team, and demonstrate the ability to prepare for, assist, or manage levels 2 or level 3 energy audits for the West Harlem building as part of their administrative support team. Sorry, I know that was a mouthful, but we just wanted to make sure we gave an understanding of a little bit of what we were trying to get them to do. Next slide, please. The core content of technical training, again, as was mentioned before, focused on the 4 different types of energy audits, on what they needed to understand, what's involved in conducting an audit, measurements needed from an audit. So basically the whole procedure, the process, what they will need, what is expected of them, requirements, how to process the collected data, and then also the best practices of building operations and maintenance programs. Next slide. The class structure was designed to be, all 4 courses were designed to be in person that made up the optimizing efficiency program. And they were designed to be taught, as I said, in person by an instructor, sort of with a lecture style class format. They consisted of education lectures by both instructors and guest speakers, instruction-led discussions, interactive group exercises, content review, as well as daily knowledge assessment quizzes. So there was a quizzing process. There was going to be a grading process, so that it's not just that people could kind of come in, sign in, and then walk out with a certification or a credential. They had to actually do the work and pass the testing procedures and evaluations procedures, so they are properly trained once they move back into the workforce. Next slide, please. In order to do this, we partnered with 3Q Innovation, and they were able to create this syllabus that we were able to implement in the classes. 3Q Innovation was an economic and workforce development nonprofit based in New York City. And they basically provided the program design, conducted all the research and development for the project, and were responsible for the coordination and delivery of deliverables and instruction for the project. And they also constructed all the course instruction that was done online as well for the project. So I do want to give them a thanks. Through them, we were able to basically create this program and develop it for this pilot test run. Next slide. Then all of a sudden, COVID hit, as it did with everybody else. And that threw probably the biggest monkey wrench in our system that we've ever had to deal with before, as I'm sure you all very well know and have experienced. Next slide. So the direct challenges that we faced from COVID was basically two-pronged. One was the results of the sort of lockdowns that we had to do in the face of COVID. And the second phase was the result of the actual COVID infections and people catching it. So we had sort of it hit us in two waves. Obviously the first one was the lockdowns that happened when everything sort of shut down. So we were trying to stop the spread, so to speak. That provided roadblocks for us to be able to teach the course. Buildings, some people were not able to get into buildings. Vaccine requirements at some point really limited our ability to have this course as was originally constructed as an in-person lecture style class. We then had to change to another paradigm and another template, which we did, which was a predominantly online course. West Harlem Group employees and tenants also experienced exceptionally high negative impacts, both in terms of infections and outcomes. And that was all sort of related to this sort of pandemic situation. Because of the fact that we are addressing the needs of an underrepresented population, a demographic, it was also a population that was hit relatively high with COVID, at least initially. And so they were disproportionately affected compared to other NYC neighborhoods, at least initially. And as a result, it resulted in various and numerous infections people actually received or contracted COVID-19. And so therefore, in light of all of this, in light of all the lockdowns, all the in-person instruction had to be canceled. And as a result, an online alternative option was explored. And as it became clear, internet and equipment across for online learning was also going to be a big obstacle because we had originally planned it to be an in-person situation. So as a result, West Harlem, to address the problem of COVID, switched the requirement for this program from its employees from being mandatory to attend the program to then being voluntary because of the nature of COVID. And as a result, this did affect our attendance. Our initial projections for registration were affected by this as well. So again, we had to adjust and then make adjustments and adaptations to incorporate a wider audience. Next slide. So again, once the pandemic hit, the delivery of the Train the Trainer program, which the name was immediately converted to an online experience. We reshaped the program to fit within this new paradigm. And we used that as a basis to provide the energy efficient course content and instruction to a much larger West Harlem Group audience via an online instructor-led learning experience, which was an interactive online class in which students engaged in a variety of modules. The quizzing components were still present. They still had to take the quizzes and move through the curriculum as if they were in class, but unfortunately, we were not able to be in class because of the COVID restrictions. As it was stated, the course participants successfully participated in the class instruction. There was still the group and individual R&D assignments, as well as the instructor practicums, exams, and evaluations. Next slide, please. As the pandemic continued, we realized that we would not be able to meet the initial projections of what we wanted to do in terms of training the staff due to these COVID-related issues. So as a result, West Harlem was able to outsource this program and the slots available to their various partners in the area for our training as well. So we were able to mitigate that situation by expanding the demographic of the students beyond the initial West Harlem employee set to a larger community-based set based on the same student profile. And therefore we were able to sort of mitigate that circumstance. Next slide, please. So as a result, since completion of the program, all the participants have successfully transitioned to a new energy-related employment positions. That is over 150 workers, predominantly from disadvantaged communities and priority populations, have taken the training online. Again, that was initially supposed to be West Harlem, but because of the COVID situation, we had to broaden the scope, but we were still able to service the 150 workers. Among the participants who took the training, the average measured knowledge gain score is over 40%. And the average rating evaluation of the course is a 9 out of 10. So everybody pretty much loved it so far. So we're very proud of that. We're very proud of the outcome for an experimental class that we had to adjust on the fly. All participants who've taken the course thus far have been connected to the built environment industry, either as existing workers or as new entrants. Next slide, please. So again, while some of our outcomes were different than what we had originally projected, and were sort of hard to manage, we had to then go to a new set of buildings. We had to get energy readings from new sets of buildings, new data, which we are working with NYSERDA on submitting. But nonetheless, overall, the project we feel was highly successful. We're very proud of it and our ability to adapt to the COVID situation and still be able to service the underrepresented population that we targeted at the beginning of this project. Next slide, please. Again, it was successfully completed, even though it was conducted virtually. The participants have successfully transitioned to new energy-related employment opportunities. As I said before, over 150 entrant workers from disadvantaged communities have received building operation and maintenance energy efficiency technical training. And as a result, they can apply to any building that they live in or work in. So that is going to help them with their sort of future, and that's what the whole purpose was. And they also received upskill training that would help them compete in the job market. Next slide. That pretty much wraps it up. But again, on behalf of the Office of Continuing and Professional Studies, we would like to personally thank NYSERDA, the West Harlem Group Association and their partners, as well as 3Q Innovation for this collaboration that we feel was very successful. Hopefully we don't have to deal with any more pandemics, God willing. But if we do have to deal with those situations, we are very confident that the team that we've been working with over the past year will be able to meet any of those needs and still be able to service the people that we are looking to service and be able to achieve the goals that we have set forth, particularly with PON or PON 3715 or anything else. Thank you very much. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact me. And I'm sure if any of you are looking to engage in any of these kinds of programs, you will find just as much success as we have. Thank you, Devette. Back to you.
Thank you, Raymond. I am so grateful to both Michaela and Raymond for their testimonials. Can we go to the next slide? Hearing the success brings me a lot of happiness. On a day-to-day basis, some of my job can get really routine and you wonder, are you making any difference doing all this? And by listening to the two of you, you've given me a very good sense that we are making a difference. And it's interesting because your two programs now, if you were to propose them, you would need to show 10% cost share instead of 30. And I hope that would help make a difference and perhaps get more people trained.
Yes.
Okay, so NYSERDA has contracted with Cadmus, and they are our outreach and education contractors. Basically, they are helping me promote this program and to get more organizations like Raymond's and Michaela's involved in this so that we can get more people trained. So Cadmus is available to anyone who's on this call after this. If you're interested in perhaps putting forward a proposal, again, our next due dates are September 22nd and then the third Thursday of November. But I'm going to now turn it over to Celeste Smith from Cadmus to manage our Q&A session. Celeste? And I think everyone. We can put down the presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So let me just see what we have in the chat. I've seen that there's a question asking about, in a similar vein to PON 3981, is there a connecting tool for this PON or a way to connect training providers with property management firms?
Wow. No, but there's a way the property management firms could find the trainers. So we are not developing a list of potential building candidates, but by going to that map, and the link was in the first part of my presentation, going to that map, you will see a list of all the trainers. Also, there was a slide there with a list of all the trainers. So I would refer you there if you are a property management company. As I said, oftentimes those companies are already working with folks. Also, there's a partner connector for the rest of NYSERDA programs. Well, and 3981, there are a number of trainers identified in that. So the link that I had on my closing page, there's a link there for a partner connector, and I encourage you to go through that too.
Great. So another question is, by $1 million spent on energy, can that include electric and natural gas?
Absolutely, all fuels.
Great. Then we have another question from Philip Brown. Does your company work on Mid and Eastern LI? So I'm guessing that this is for Michaela.
Yes, actually, our union is in Long Island. You'll have to give me the company, and then I will have to research if they're part of 32BJ. That's the only thing. Not everybody's part of 32BJ. So
Great, thank you. Then we got another question asking, I need to understand, does PON 3715 allow property owners to sign up to have their buildings examined and get funds to improve their buildings? So I think a little clarification for them.
Sure. There's a proposal process, and the link to the solicitation page, the summary document explains exactly what you need to do to put a package together. And I've worked very hard to simplify it as best as I can, to the point where I give you a sample scope of work that you can use as a template as you develop your own scope of work, which is necessary for any project you're proposing. Scope of work coupled with a budget, coupled with a schedule. So, quick reminder on the question for me, Celeste.
Sure. So asking if it allows property owners to sign up to have their buildings examined and get funds to improve their buildings.
Yep. So it's not like a property owner would sign up to do something. That happens outside of NYSERDA's work, but you would have already spoken to trainers if you're looking to enlist the support of a trainer to come in, and then together you would prepare that proposal. I know many times it's the training organization that does most of the proposal, but obviously they have to identify skills gaps within the building to be able to design a curriculum. So it's not something that you would propose to NYSERDA until you have like a full package together. That said, you got my email on there, and if you want to know, will this qualify or not, please, instead of spending time doing something you're not sure of, reach out and I'll confirm.
Great. So I think we have another question for Michaela. This is from Philip Brown. For the size of the buildings you were looking at, should the employer have had that many employees?
Good question. Not necessarily, because we're such a big union and we cover a lot of different types of buildings. It was very hard to kind of set a goal of the number of buildings and the number of people that we expect to train. I think just the timing of everything, and with COVID, it just made things different. And I guess the employers that we worked with, or that the employers that actually reached out to us to want to do the training, their buildings just happen to have less 32BJ members than we expected. So, you know, there could even be a building that has both 32BJ and non-32BJ at the same time. So there, you know, that's one of the things that we now consider more as we move forward. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I have another question. And so this is from Betsy. I can't see her last name, but she's the executive director of the Northeast Home Energy Rating System Alliance. And she would like to know if doing a baseline study for embodied carbon in a sample of buildings in the Northeast would fit within the guidelines for any of these funding opportunities.
No, does not sound like it would, because ours are directed at training individuals. So doing a study might be something that you could do through NYSERDA's FlexTech program. And I would refer you to that, and just search NYSERDA FlexTech and that will come up in any Google search.
Perfect. So it looks like we have another question. Okay, so they're asking for a little clarification. So regarding the $400,000 limit, please confirm that the cost share is in addition, i.e. 30% of $400,000 equaling $120,000 to the $400,000 paid by NYSERDA to the awardee.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. If NYSERDA's contribution has a max of 400,000.
Perfect. Thank you, Devetta. And we have another question. This is from Christine Emma. So her question is, are there any restrictions for the proposal that we should be aware of? As an LDC, we would probably have to work with a property management company in order to qualify with the energy usage. Would this be acceptable?
I would have to look at it if you've got a very specific situation. But are there any other things you need to know about? Yeah, you need to read the PON summary. And that lays out everything, eligibility requirements, everything that is necessary to complete a proposal and have it be written as well as you can, so that when we evaluate it, it will score high. Also, we give you the evaluation criteria. So as you're developing your proposal, you can look through and it will specifically say, regarding the statement of work, is it this, is it that? So that as you're writing it, it's kind of like teaching to the test in some ways. But yes, there's a lot of help within that summary doc. And if you have any questions on any of that, please reach out to me. And I did just throw my email address in the chat, and we will be following up by sending out those presentations that you saw today with their links.
So I think that's the last question that we have in the chat, but folks are still welcome to add any questions that they may have. One question that I have for our speakers, this is just from me, but is how you would recommend people go about this. Like, do you recommend they reach out to the training organizations first, reach out to NYSERDA first, gauge the interest with their building engineers and maintenance folks? How did you get started?
I think the first thing would be to gauge a need and demand within the company, see what numbers you're working with, whether or not you could house the training internally completely, or if you would have to outsource like we had to do as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, just sort of get your own numbers, your own target numbers in place. And then when you are available or you feel you're at a level where you can properly not just provide the training, but have people to provide it to, I would then see about reaching out, I guess, to NYSERDA at that point, just to see. They're probably going to have their own process, the screening process. So I want to get your all your eggs in a basket before you get in touch with them. But I think the biggest thing is to establish the demand and the demographic that you're looking to present this to. Make sure you have those numbers set up, and that if you already have the training, if that's what your organization is, like Ms. Boren's, you can start there. Or if you're like us and you're creating everything, then you would have to outsource and get the curriculum, get the program developed, do the R&D necessary, and then go to NYSERDA once you have all those bases covered to present the best presentation.
Yeah, and I would definitely encourage looking at the website, because it's actually, very nicely laid out, and it's pretty informative, and including the map. It kind of gives you more ideas of what you can and cannot do. Like, the website even has like how many buildings were multifamily, were residential, were hospitals or K-12, and then always there's some issues or specific questions, definitely reach out to the VETA. So I think that's, we're already a training, and we already have a target audience to begin with. By law, we're only allowed 32 BJ members, and we already work with management companies. So for us, it was kind of a straightforward thing to apply for it, but definitely, work with a management company or a building, because you do need that building data, which is essential in this grant. So.
Great. Thank you both very much. And I think we have one other question asking, suppose you have a new building and are hiring all new staff on new building systems. So.
And if you read the next line, I actually replied to that in the chat. And it said that's beyond the scope of this. This is for existing employees and for energy reduction. But I encourage you to look at NYSERDA's new construction program and see if there's any offerings that would be appropriate there.
Thank you, Devetta. All right, with that, I'll pass it back to Flo. And I want to say again, thank you to our speakers and thank you to Devetta. So you have it, Flo.
Thank you. And thank you, Celeste, so much. I was also going to say thank you to our speakers for sharing your time and your expertise with us. We're so grateful for NYSERDA for making this event possible. And Devetta, thank you for running the show and also for being such a great resource for our panelists. For those of you tuning in, if you haven't yet registered for Building Energy NYC, I want to invite you to do so. As you heard, that there's a session that will directly follow up on some of what you've learned here today. We're thrilled to be holding the conference in person for the first time in 3 years. And as a reminder, for those of you who don't know, the last time we were in person, we did sell out about 3 days before. So if that happens, don't say I didn't warn you. I'd also like to invite you to register to attend NYSE Night, which will be on September 14th at the Building Energy Exchange. That's how we're kicking off the conference this year. This is an annual event that's really a celebration of our whole community and the great work happening in the industry, but also within our organization. It's a party. It's going to be fun. We'd love to see you there. And finally, there are 2 more webinars in this series between now and the conference. You can register for all of these events on NYSE's website, and my colleague Ian Reed is going to drop the link into the chat so you can see the next 2 webinars and NYSE Night and the conference. So thank you all again for your time, and we'll see you soon, either at one of the next pre-conference webinars or in person in just 3 weeks. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.